Welcome to the Single Father Podcast. I am your host, Kendall Donaker. This podcast is dedicated for anyone out there who's dealing with mental health and fatherhood. You'll hear about my struggles, my defeats, my victories, my highs, my lows, my triumphs, my tribulations, and everything in between. I like to call this a collection of journal entries into my struggle and adapting to single fatherhood. Without further ado, let's take a look inside my journal, the Single Father Podcast. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and otherwise. Thank you for joining me on today's special episode, and it is a special one. Today's episode is special for a very big reason, and it's something that it's an episode that I've been dreading for, I think, about 9 months now. And it's that my baby mama had a baby, and I'm just kidding. It's not mine. It's not mine at all. As weird as I may sound, trust me, it's weirder to me. And let me first talk about how I feel about it. How do I feel? Well, I think the way I feel is indifferent. Indifferent because, first of all, I don't have a lingering desire or hope or feeling of love for my child's mother at all. Quite the opposite, actually. However, just like co-parenting is weird and surreal, this new development is also weird and surreal. And I think there are milestones that are in place when you're a co-parent, milestones that can be good and milestones that can be bad, and milestones that I guess make you feel indifferent. This is one of those indifferent times where her having a baby doesn't really bother or affect me in any way, but it indirectly affects me because it's my daughter's sister, right? My daughter has a sister that has nothing to do with my family or me in general. You know what I mean? And it's not like I think too much into it, but I wonder what that means. Will my daughter be more invested in seeing her sister more often? Will she ask me about why she doesn't have a brother or sister at my house? Does she even want a brother or sister at my house? It makes me think about life and kind of how I got here to this place. And it's just a weird feeling, you know? Now, not to mention co-parenting is weird in general. And what I mean by that is you're already co-parenting with someone that you really rather not have in your life anymore. But her and I have kind of gotten to a place where we rarely talk. I truth be told, I haven't seen her in 9 months. Isn't that funny? I only see her boyfriend. So her boyfriend or whatever he is drops her off at my house. I drop my daughter off at their house. When we do the pickup and exchanges, we never say a word to each other. It's just I haven't seen my child's mother in, I think, about that time, 9 months, ever since I learned that she was pregnant. The reason I haven't seen her, I really couldn't tell you, but I haven't seen her. I've spoken to her, of course. We have to speak, but yeah, it's and that might be purposeful. It's just a little different. You know, I feel indifferent. I feel indifferent that my daughter, another milestone I was indifferent about, it has another male figure at her house that is around my daughter 50% of the time. I feel indifferent that my child's mother was pregnant by someone else. And now I feel indifferent that she had a baby. with someone else. Now, when you feel these things, I guess you feel like you're the only one who's ever gone through it. But of course, it happens to many people around the world. It just happens. But you never think it's going to happen to you, right? I don't feel a feeling of love from my child's mother, but I also feel, I guess, shocked. And I just feel, it almost feels like she beat me a little bit, you know? And what I mean is, I feel like ever since we split up, I've been having sort of a quiet competition with her. Who gets a house first? Who gets a family first? Who gets what they want first, right? Which sounds, petty and terrible, but it's kind of how it is. I felt like I was in a little bit of a competition with her, income wise, success wise, family wise. Like I said, and although I feel like I've come on top in other ways, I've spoken about this before, I think in my last podcast, it feels in a lot of ways that I'm behind because I I I feel like she has what I've always wanted and that's a family. In my last episode, I spoke a little bit about how I felt like I was missing something in my life, and that being a relationship, a partner, someone to spend my life with. Because even though the podcast is called the Single Father Podcast, it's very indicative to, mental health and how I'm feeling as a parent when it comes to raising a 4-year-old by myself instead of with my partner, my soulmate. And I think that's the one thing that I was missing in my life. And when I found out, first of all, that she was having a baby, it was very shocking, but it also kind of brought me back to a feeling of regret as sort of, how did I get here? You know what I mean? And I think it's important to kind of talk about a little bit how I've gotten here. So, I remember in the past, well, I just remember the first time I met my child's mother. It was at a frat party, and I thought, those movies where you meet someone at a party and kind of like the floodlight comes down on that one person and everyone kind of just fades into black. That's kind of how I saw her for the first time. This beautiful woman standing out in the light, you know? And I remember speaking to her, and I made some cheesy pickup line, and we danced and we had a great time and so on and so forth. But truth be told, I don't think I was ever really ready to have a very committed relationship as I thought I was. I spoke about in previous episodes that I think it has something to do with my mother. And that's another topic that I'm going to be discussing in an upcoming episode, is my relationship with my mom. But I don't think I've had the best relationships with women my entire life. I feel like I've seen a not good example with my parents, and I've also felt a not good feeling with previous exes in my life. And I think that's made me a little bit untrusting and made me feel like kind of unworthy and a lot of different things, I guess. So when I met this woman, my child's mother, I really was head over heels for her, but I was also very distant at the same time because I was weary. I was unsure about moving forward because I didn't want to get disappointed or hurt or XYZ. So I remember at the time she was very, and I'm just being honest on how I feel, she was very obsessed with me. She was really all over me. She was happy to be a part of my life, um, and I was happy to be a part of hers. It's just, as time progressed, she asked things of me when we started dating that I was not couldn't do is the wrong word, but unwilling to do, I guess, is the right word, and very asshole-ish. And at the time, you don't realize you're being an asshole, but man, I regret a lot of those decisions that I made. Decisions being, can you take that Selena Gomez poster off your wall? Can you post me on your story more? Can you just do simple things that I thought she was being ridiculous over? But it really is just common sense. And yeah, I don't know, at the time, I just felt like she was being silly. But when you grow up and you have a sense of hindsight, you realize you were the one who was so wrong. And so I think me doing that pushed her away a little bit as well. We had some pretty big falling outs in our relationship. We became a little toxic with each other. Her angry at me that I wouldn't be able to do the simplest of things, and me angry at her that I would catch her in some precarious situations, and it would maybe catch her in some lies, or we had a very untrusting relationship with each other. And it got worse, right around the time that we were having, or we found out that she was pregnant. I remember there was, I don't know if I spoke about it before in a previous episode. I'm not going to go into it again, but there was something that happened that made me unsure if the child was mine. And the pregnancy to me, the 9 months of her being pregnant, was beautiful and also bittersweet, because I was immensely happy, motivated, and inspired to be a dad. But I was also very hesitant and scared and weary for the very fact that I'm not sure if it was my kid. A feeling that a woman could never know. And I'm just being honest. I'm not sexist or anything, but I believe it's a feeling that very few women could ever experience, because it's coming out of you. You know it's yours. But for me, I was very scared when it came to the terms of paternity. But I remember the most unbiased, beautiful moment in my life was when we were at the ultrasound and we were checking on how the baby was. And we're about to find out the gender. She knew in her heart that it was a girl. And I kind of thought, it's for sure a boy. Of course, right? The doctor puts the thingy on her stomach and says that it's a girl. And I just remember my whole world just stopped, just how happy I was. I was shocked, really. I just remember it was such a beautiful moment. But I remember, even though that wasn't the moment, I feel like that's the moment I really lost her. Because once we got out of the doctor's office, the feeling of fear came over me. But not the fear that you would expect, not the fear of being a parent, but it was the fear of, is this kid really mine? Every once in a while, maybe every year or so, or a couple months, I'll play that memory over in my head. And the image that I like to think that happened is I got out of that doctor's office, I picked her up, I spun her around, and I got excited, and I posted on my story that we were having a girl, and I made this huge announcement about how happy I was and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, I didn't do that. I think we got in the car, I was happy, and we spoke about it, but it wasn't anything more than that. And I was stupid, at the time. I had bad friends around me, and I was kind of listening to the wrong people, and I think I just didn't have a good sense of self or self-awareness during that time. I stand by the fact that I was unsure that it was my kid, but I so much regret not supporting and being there for her more than I could have. I regret a lot of things about that time. A lot. When we broke up, that's when the fear of being a parent started really consuming me. And by the way, I have really no problem with her or her boyfriend. I just except this one time he I it's just she's done the opposite again of everything I've ever thought she would in this co-parenting situation, right? And I just wanted the chance to get to know him before him actually meeting and being around my daughter. And I didn't get to have that. She said that that would be too awkward and that he wouldn't feel comfortable with that. And I got confused by that because obviously it would be awkward. I think, to be fair, more awkward for me. Um, and I just felt like there was a lack of respect there. I thought that was a cowardly decision. Um, but personally, I never had a form of reference to that. I've only known that that's the route you take through movies and TV shows of, the father, doing background checks on the guy that's around his daughter all the time. And that's what I thought and still believe to this day that that's how it should be. And I trust her as a mother that someone else is around my daughter. Um, but I don't know the man at all. And that was another kind of uncomfortable feeling for me being a parent. You know, I, I just feel very lost with this whole thing. It's not something that you wish on yourself being a co-parent, trust me. And adding someone else in my daughter's life, that was hard. And now another person in my daughter's life? I guess I guess I'm still not used to change. I guess I hope that God grants me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and to change the things that I can. I guess I have not yet learned the wisdom to know the difference. This episode is sponsored by Keys AI. Guys, if you're single or struggling with dating, I think you're going to be very interested in what I have to say next. If you've ever used a dating app, you know that they're a huge pain. But what if I told you that there was a virtual wingman that worked on every dating app? That's exactly what the guys over at Keys AI have built. Keys AI is your virtual wingman that suggests exactly what to say to land your next match. I've used Keys AI on Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge, and let me tell you, it is an absolute game changer. I won't even use dating apps without it now. If you want to start getting more dates immediately, then download Keys AI for free at thekeys.ai or search Keys AI in the App Store. Guys, what are you waiting for? Download this app today. If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has the tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. By then, I have already taken a DNA test. Our baby has already came, and of course, the happiest moment of my life. And I spoke about this before. When she came, I was just flooded with joy and peace and bliss. But I was also very weary. I was concerned whether she looked like me or not, and I feel like I've held that feeling a month or two after she was born, and she held the feeling of me not being there as much as I could have. And we broke up. And I remember when we broke up, I think it was a month before I took the DNA test and found out she was mine. But the damage was already done. The words were already said, and it could not be recovered. And it's been a long, long, long journey ever since then. And doing this on my own, it's been a trip. On one hand, I feel very grateful because, hey, it's just me and my daughter, right? At her mom's house, she has her mom, she has her boyfriend, she has other family there, and now a new sister. But when she's with me, it's just me and my baby girl. It's just me and her. We spend every moment together. And this dad thing, I'll tell you what, I feel like I got it down now. My car has a iPad in it, and I got snacks, and I have toddler proof everything. I mean, I'm nice with this shit. I'm good at parenting, right? I'm really, really good at it. At first I wasn't sure if I'd be a good dad, but now I'm like, listen, for all of you listening who aren't parents yet, right now you're probably on Amazon thinking, ooh, that would look good in my house. Ooh, I can get that. Ooh, I can get that. Nowadays, I think, ooh, my daughter would love that. Ooh, I get this, I get that. You become selfless. You just give to your child because that's all you want to do. And that's all I've ever done for the last almost 4 years now. And it's what you should do. I'm just a reflection of my child now. I'm already a ghost. You know what I mean? She gets to grow up in my and her mom's image, and that's beautiful to me. And I'm happy to be a parent, and spending every moment I have with my daughter is very, very beautiful to me. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that on the weeks that she's here, I'm much more tired. I feel old. I see the wrinkles on my face. I see my anxiety rising. It's no easy task being a parent. The expenses, the care, the attention, everything. It requires so much of my time. And I'm not necessarily complaining. I'm just saying it's also a very hard thing doing it by myself. And when her mother and I broke up, I think there were moments that I thought maybe we could get back together. There's even moments that we tried. And sometimes, even to this day, as of right now, I don't have that feeling anymore, but it is very surreal to me that I had a baby with this woman. I spoke about having a family with this woman. We planned our future together. Very few people know this, and maybe that's the problem. But very few people know this, but I proposed to her. She was my fiance, you know? I plan on marrying this woman. This woman was everything to me at one point. I remember her telling me that our relationship was always just bad, but I don't have that always bad memory. I do have the bad ones, trust me, but it was so beautiful and good at some points, you know? And every once in a while, I'll have these flashbacks in my head. Do any of you have that out there where you, and maybe it has something to do with trauma, but I'll have these flashbacks, you know? Little things that triggered me that make me think about the past. And I'll have these flashbacks in my head of moments that I could have changed or images that I could have fixed, words that I could have reworded and not said, or maybe had said. I I I think of these flashbacks in my head, and I sometimes I'll create a new memory, you know? I'll remember something and I'll change it in my head. I'll just to imagine, you know, what it would be like if had I done something differently. If you had a time machine, what would you change, you know? What moments do you think you could change that would change the course of your life? And would they be for the better or would they be for worse? Truth be told, that's another perplexing feeling for me because her mother and I right now, I couldn't even imagine a world where we'd ever even really be friends, let alone together again. We're the complete opposite. It's funny, really. I feel like I know everything about this woman, but as time goes on, I feel like I've become farther and farther apart from who she really is. And it might be an age thing. She's a little younger than I am, and maybe we've grown at different times. Clearly, we've grown apart, but sometimes I truly, when I'm speaking to her, I can't recognize the woman that I once knew. And I think that's weird to me. This woman that I was planning to spend the rest of my life with, I feel like I have no idea really who she is anymore. I'm not saying that in a bad way or a good way. I'm just saying, like, I don't recognize her, you know? And I certainly wasn't prepared for her to have a child. But as I was saying, you know, sometimes I'll imagine a different world where I made a different decision, where things were different. And every once in a while, I'll imagine what life would be like if we were still together. Would I have 2 kids running around my house stressing me out? Maybe it would be nice to come home to someone and cuddle while I'm playing video games, you know, or maybe it'd be nice to see my daughter every day instead of every other week. You know, I wonder those things sometimes. Sometimes it makes me sad, and sometimes it makes me feel indifferent. Because it's weird, right? Like I said, I don't miss her. I don't love her. I don't want her back. But I don't know. I just wonder what things might have been like, you know? So this baby, you know, the way I heard about it was interesting. I was at a New Year's Eve get together with my friend, and I had another friend of mine come to me and say, "Hey, how do you feel about your baby mama being pregnant?" And I said, "What?" and I'm drunk, right? And I couldn't believe what my eyes or my ears just heard. I was blown away. And I could tell everyone immediately was like, oh no. You know, it was one of those things where you think I'd know, but I didn't know. And you always expect these things to happen, right? I expected her to have a family one day and to have a baby and all of that, but it's kind of like, hey, that's in the future. That's not now. I don't have to think about that now, right? Do I? And I guess the fact that it came now was more shocking than, I don't know. Maybe I thought it'd never happen. I just was never thinking about it, you know? So I think after I heard about that she was pregnant, a very rare moment, I had her in front of me where I was dropping my daughter off, where her boyfriend wasn't present, and I spoke to her. I said, I feel like you've done everything opposite of what I would expect from this situation. She's like, what do you mean? And I said, you introduced your boyfriend to my daughter without me uh, getting to know him or speaking to him first. You are pregnant and you don't tell me. And she's like, look, it's not your kid. You have no right to know. Like, you know, and I get that. And she's right. It's not my kid, and maybe she didn't owe me anything, but I felt like, I don't know. I felt like, wouldn't you, I don't know. I just felt like there was a respect thing there that I felt that I deserved to know. And maybe that's me just being narcissistic or selfish. I truthfully can't tell you, but I thought that everything that we went through, I'd at least get to know that before hearing it from my friend. And we had a very emotional heart to heart with each other, and sorry, I'm just remembering it now. It's just giving me anxiety. We both cried to each other in person, and we spoke about it, and emotions came out of her crying and me crying, and I remember one of the last things she said to me was, well, maybe the next time you have a kid, you'll actually be there. And it made me angry, but it also made me incredibly, incredibly sad. And that was the last time I saw her. And now, 9 months later, I still haven't seen her. And maybe that's why. And it's not like I care. Again, I want to be very clear. It's kind of like Justin Bieber said, and I was gonna write a song because I didn't want anyone thinking I still care. I don't, but you know, I I don't know. It's been a very interesting trip for me, and that's what this podcast is about. Really, just me figuring out fatherhood, life, and mental health, and everything else in between. You know, I don't have anyone in my life that has gone through this. I don't know anyone personally who has, and my friends are all young studs with no kids. And I it's hard for me sometimes, not that she's had a baby, just because I feel like you just feel alone. You feel alone in this. You're like, I'm so behind, and I don't know. maybe I don't need to feel like that. Look, it's not a real competition here. I just feel like I would love someone in my life to share these moments with and to share these feelings with and to talk about a family together with. That's the thing I always wanted. It's just interesting that I spoke to her about a family at one point, and now she's having another family without me. Do I feel left out? No. Do I feel hurt? No. But do I feel alone? Yeah, I do. Um, and look, if I'm the single father forever, I completely accept that. I have a lot to answer for to God when I see him about decisions I've made, but I've learned to also cut myself some slack. I was a young guy and I'm growing every day, making better decisions, better choices, and bettering myself. And hopefully one day a woman will come along and love me for me, and I will be talking about me having another child at some point. And knowing my luck, it'll be another girl as well, which I'm totally okay for. I'm a girl dad all the way. I love having a girl, but But now I have baby fever, and I guess the only thing to do is to buy more condoms, make sure I don't make a mistake. I want to thank all of you for listening and hearing me vent about a lot of these feelings. Because although I don't really have someone directly to speak to about these things, because guys, and by the way, I learned that my friends do listen to my podcast, and if you're listening, I love all of you, but hey, we're men. We don't share these things necessarily unless I'm drunk. If I'm drunk, I'll tell you everything. But, to everyone who's listening and allowing me to vent with you, thank you very much, because venting to all of you, my pack of people, it's heartwarming. And to hear some of you reach out to me and to know that some of you are listening and supporting me, it means the world. And it makes me feel a little less alone. And if you know anyone who's single, let me know. Look, I when it comes to this situation, it's going to be different. It's a different dynamic in this weird co-parenting situation that I have. Now my daughter has another sibling, another family member who has nothing to do with me, and that's interesting. And I'm totally accepting of that, and I support my daughter and her love for her new sister. And it's new, and I'm going to adjust, but truth be told, it has nothing really to do with me, so I guess I don't have to adjust too much. But no, it's not the first time or the last time that I'll have something new pop up in this situation. One day, maybe she'll get married, and one day, maybe she'll have another kid. Maybe one day she'll want to move. One day she'll get older and maybe want to spend more time at her mom's house, more time at my house. There's school. There's a lot of things to come. And you know what? I'll be right here sharing them with you. So thank you for allowing me to vent with you. It really helped me. I'll tell you what, I've been feeling down these last couple of weeks about a lot of different things, not necessarily the baby, but I don't know. You ever have those moods where something like a wrench, I forgot what you call that. I don't know, where something just bothers you and you just can't let it go a little bit. I think I've been having one of those weeks, but now that I'm finally able to share it to all of you, I think I can, get over it. Well, I have some parenting to do. I think my daughter is going to wake up from her nap soon, and I have some peanut butter and jellies to make. and then probably clean up off my floor. You can follow the Single Father Podcast on Facebook at the Single Father Podcast, on Instagram at the Single Father Podcast as well. Please like, subscribe, share, leave a review. It definitely helps. Please, please, please. There's also an opportunity to vent with me on the podcast. I think I've had some people express interest, and I might have some other single fathers on the podcast soon that are going to vent with me about their experiences and their trials and tribulations with parenting and being a co-parent and everything in between. So that's going to be a very interesting dynamic that I'm going to bring to the show pretty soon. And hopefully as time progresses, there'll be a lot of new and bigger updates that I'll be able to share with you as well. If you guys are interested in venting with me as a parent, as a father, or even as a mother, please email us at hello@ventpack.org. That's hello@ventpack.org. And someone will be in touch to kind of work out some details there. Otherwise, thank you very much. I love all of you. And as we vent together and have each other's back, thank you for being a part of my pack. Until next time. Bye-bye.